So I wanted to make an audio recording because in a last video, I kind of addressed an issue that I had. I, because I don't know how to like me get in touch with a spirit or anything like that, but deceased spirits are always around us, and I have a lot of friends and family that is passed on, and their spirit is always like, sometimes even if you can't hear them, they can hear you whenever you call. All you need to do is call their spirit forward. And I ended up, I have a video that I made probably about 2 months ago, because I had a classmate of mine, and his name was Nick, and basically what ended up happening is, you can watch my other video if you want to, but in this audio recording I'll explain the other things, and I've mentioned him in a couple of other videos. And it was really weird because we went to school together, and before he joined the military, we exchanged numbers. We went out to lunch, one time he took me out to lunch, whatever. But I didn't really know him that well, and we went to college together for about a month, and then he graduated and everything because he's a little bit older than me, and I had just gotten out of high school and moved down there. Basically, I didn't really know him that well. We had only talked like a little bit over the phone, and this is probably like the last time I had any contact with him was back in 2008. And for some reason, in early December of 2017, I just had this feeling to look up his name on the internet, and I looked him up, and his name and his city, first and last name and city and everything, to see if there was any news about him. And it's really weird, and I hadn't thought about him in about 10 years, and he had ended up committing suicide on Halloween. So this is barely a month before I had looked him up. He ended up overdosing on prescription medication. So there's kind of I was sort of at a crossroads, because I have to explain the whole situation that happened between me and Nick, because normally I'm very spiritual and I'm very open, and whomever wants to talk, friends and family can step forward and whatever. And I had a problem with Nick because we didn't know each other very well, and then we sort of got into it. Basically what happened is, in my other videos I sort of go into detail because Nick and we didn't really know each other, and I was dating this narcissist for 2 years named G. My ex, he and I were on and off for 2 years. And basically, when G dumped me the second and third time, so in 2007, G and I started going out, and then he dumped me a couple months later and everything, and then about 6 months later he started going out with Nick's sister, Sherry Brown. And then and then G got back together with me, and then he dumped me, and then he got back together with me like 3 months later, and then he dumped me for Sherry again. And Nick is part of the situation because he was Sherry's brother, and then it just basically got in between all the four of us. It was me, my ex G, his new girlfriend Sherry Brown, and then Nick. And it just got to be like really big, and just Nick was like sending all these lies to me about G and all this stuff, and that's how Nick and I sort of like lost contact and everything like that. And as far as what I know, Nick I couldn't even get a hold of by phone because he went to Iraq. He served 2 tours in Iraq, And then, so obviously his phone number was like disconnected and everything. So we just sort of lost contact. And first and foremost, if he hadn't talked trash about my boyfriend, first of all, Nick and I don't really know each other that well. We just like kind of went to school together for about a month. Um, and that was the last time that we seen each other. And so I really didn't, I kind of had like negative feelings. And then this was 10 years ago, so this was in 2008 that all this fiasco happened. And then, it was very strange because it was early December 2017. And I looked up Nick and I found out that he had ended up committing suicide on Halloween of 2017. So it was barely maybe about 2 months before, um, he had committed suicide. And I was, normally I'm very spiritual and I'm pretty open, whoever wants to step forward. And at this point, when I figured out that he had committed suicide, I was very much, being a spiritual person, I was very much conflicted. I was very confused. I didn't know whether I kind of didn't really want to talk to him because I didn't really know him that well. And then the only thing that I knew is he got in and he didn't really know me that well, and all he started doing was like talking a bunch of trash about my boyfriend. But I know that this is especially a hard situation, um, because first of all, he was so young. He's in his 20s when he committed suicide. So first of all, he's very young when he dies. Second of all, he committed suicide, and then third of all, he just recently crossed over. So I know that he might want to, talk to me and maybe even apologize for the things that he did, even though I'm not at the point where I can hear spirits yet, but they can hear me. And so I kind of thought about it, for a while, and I thought, well, maybe, a deceased spirit might like to get into, contact, especially somebody that, committed suicide so young. And um, I really didn't know what to do, so I just kind of like waited on it and everything like that. And I have several friends and family members that have crossed over, and I thought, well, Nick is the last person that I really want to talk to, but you also have to realize that this person is in spirit form. So I just want to say, if you have a friend or family member that has passed over, you should, and if you've had issues with them, this is a good time to get a hold of them, because that person, now that they're a spirit, they might realize, oh, oops, I did something that I shouldn't have. And, if they were a spirit form, they would not have made mistakes and done problems and instigated stuff and gossip and stuff like that they had done, when they were a person. So, yeah, anyway, Nick committed suicide on Halloween of 2017. And then I wouldn't even known because I hadn't had any contact with him in like 10 years, except for some reason in early December. Um, I just felt like looking up his name and I was just absolutely shocked. And I thought it was very interesting that he had barely committed suicide, like barely a month before. And I'm looking up his name and I don't really know him that well. So anyway, so exactly 3 months after Nick committed suicide. It was January 31st, 2018, and this is just a couple weeks ago, so this is why I decided to make this video. And I just said, roughly, I don't remember the exact words that I said, but I said, Nick, whatever has happened between us, I don't want the gossip that you were saying, about G. I said that's all in the past, and I said G was the one with the real problem, and I said I don't know why you did it, but I said I'm really, really in touch with, heaven and everything, and I said I can get into touch with you, and I just said to Nick, all our problems that were in the past, it's just water under the bridge. I want you to forget about it. And I know that you're a spirit now, and I know that you would never do anything like that to me. I said that now that you're in heaven, now you're not going to get into like a bunch of gossip and, stuff like that. And I said, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I said, Nick, you're a spirit now, and I just want to see how you are doing. And I just welcomed his spirit forward. And ever since then, I feel so much better. It feels like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, like personally wise, because I can talk to this guy for like a long time. I kind of had a bad impression of him, and then I just kind of like, lost contact with him. And I think it really, really did me good, like not only to like on his end to connect with a spirit that has committed suicide, but I can welcome him forward whenever I want. I always ask him to, um, step forward and everything. And now I'm seeing American flags more often and military people more often and people dressed up, in their soldier uniform. The other day I just saw, and I'm always asking him to send me a sign. And I think that it personally cleared the air between he and I. And I did have a, bad impression on him because this was a really hard dilemma. I don't know. For a while there, I was very conflicted because I don't really know whether I should like build a friendship with somebody, that was gossiping all the time. But then as somebody that's into the spiritual world, I don't know whether I should connect with a deceased spirit. And I connected with Nick, and I am very happy that I did because we cleared a lot of things up, and now I can ask him to be with me whenever I want to.